gonna record? You watching us? Yeah, there we go, okay. Thank you.
So the first item on the agenda I have to call to order is approval of minutes from last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Oh, they fine?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from October 30th, 2023.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I don't think we have any old business. We didn't have anything pending or anything not.
No, I don't think so.
So we're here to review the master plan. And hopefully Chairman Chris from the planning board can help us with that.
Sure. Let me, it's all right. Can I come up to the table?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Let me just.
Some of your chapters are misnumbered.
Good evening, Christopher Monroe, Chair of the Planning Board and also the town's representative to the Regional Planning Commission. So the request that was sent to the Housing Committee, Affordable Housing Committee, was to review and comment on the master plan. And for the benefit of the public, the master plan is a document that towns are required by law to put together every 10 years. And this document has specific statutory approval provisions. Ultimately, the planning board votes to approve it, but having one makes us eligible for a whole bunch of different, well, it's not that having one makes us eligible, not having one disqualifies us from a whole bunch of grants and a whole bunch of other things. It's also intended to be kind of a North Star document for the town so that boards and committees are on roughly the same page. This one has had kind of a challenging growth curve. It was originally started in 2017, which was before I was even involved in any town committees or anything. And some of the chapters were approved, some of them weren't approved. There was some confusion with MRPC, the Regional Planning Commission, because MRPC was helping us out with it. And things kind of got a little cold, then all the COVID years happened, there were no meetings, and everything got crazy. So we're all trying to get it back on the same page now. And MRPC revised many of the chapters and republished them to us because there were some relatively important things in it that appeared to not be correct. Things like the calculation of developable land. In the original version they sent over, it was around 2%, and the new version, it's 4-something%. That's obviously a pretty big difference. You're talking about it being almost doubled. And the reason that was because of how some of the constraints are counted. Not ideally. When we look at land that's available for development, we look at it in a few different buckets. The first one is developable without constraints, and that's actually pretty rare in Hubbardston at this point. The only places where it exists in any large quantity are up by the old sand pits off of Pitcherville Road, both north and south of it. There's also some small parcels kind of smattered through town. Then there's developable with partial constraints. Partial constraints are things like wetlands, because wetlands are not an automatic bar to development at either a local or state level, especially at a state level when you start talking about a 40B project. And like a lot of that stuff is really important from a policy making standpoint. Like if we don't have those numbers right, like how can we be making good decisions? So we pushed back, we sent it back, they gave us the revised version. The revised version is what got sent out to all the chairs of all the boards and all the committees. There are some committees that are of particular importance for reviewing this. One of them being the Affordable Housing Committee, then Economic Development, and then the Public Safety folks on the implementation chapters. So with that said, this is a tough thing to look at. Like there's a whole bunch of chapters in it. If you guys ultimately end up needing a little bit more time to read and process it, I think the planning board is likely to be falling off of the timeline that we were
good, cause I don't think I've gotten it, did you? I haven't looked at it at all.
Yeah, it's about 100 pages too,
Yeah.
so.
Light reading.
Yeah. Some particular things to pay attention to, and this, I don't know who has and who hasn't had an opportunity to look at the housing production plan. So Hubbardston is required to have a housing production plan, and that's supposed to be done every 10 years. It was on the decade cycle, where it was at 2000, then it was 2010, then there was a revision that was done in 2017. The world of real estate is so different now than it was in 2017. Like, a lot of the general assumptions that were in that document just aren't true. Like, there was a forecast in there saying that population in Hubbardston was going to stay level and then steadily decline, and that there was no expectation of real estate values going up. And obviously, none of that worked out that way. So I recommend looking at these in concert, because in a couple places where the housing plan fell short, the master plan kinda corrects for what those numbers really are. Like, instead of real estate prices being flat, they actually went up 40 to 60% in Hubbardston since 2017 and that document was out. So it's pretty important from that standpoint that we try to get some of the big policy concerns right now. This doesn't have to be perfect, we're just kind of looking for general feedback and general comment on it. It can be a living document. With that said, the planning board wants to vote all the chapters approved with comments at some point, hopefully in the first half of this year. But if there's amendments or revisions that can happen, the planning board can open it up and approve those revisions at any time. So it doesn't have to stay just completely set in stone.
So which chapters would apply to our committee, you think?
I would recommend the introduction, the land use, does somebody have the
Is
table
it
of
this
contents
one?
handy?
I don't have a table of contents, I didn't put that part out.
I
You
did
don't
not
have the
have
right thing.
time to finish starting my
Because we're
computer.
not listed as anywhere on the implementation.
Yeah, that is likely because that was originally put together in 2017. And it's currently in active revision. Try to get this to start. I would recommend looking at and commenting on,
My best suggestion is send us what you want us to look at, like legit, just to our emails, so that way we can not try to fight around with what specifically you want us to read.
Yep, let me just get the document here for a moment. Alright, so, introduction, land use, demographics and housing. With bonus points for transportation and circulation.
Do we win a prize? Cupcakes for everybody.
Yeah, so, yeah, introduction, yeah, goals and policies goes without saying, feel free to add some to it. Cause this is a place to kinda add to what your charter is, or take away from what your charter is. So yeah, introduction, goals and policies, land use, housing, and bonus points for transportation. So yeah, so general comments on the document itself, some general comments on the direction of the strategy, that kind of stuff. A lot of this originally came from surveys and stakeholder feedback that MRPC did in 2017. But like I mentioned earlier, we don't really live in the same world as them. So it would not be the right thing to start the process over from scratch. So we're relying on our boards and committees to provide us with some of the updates as opposed to relaunching the survey and the entire process. And I guess the one bit to add is, that was not in here, is that previously it was a long-standing belief that nobody would ever be interested in doing a 40B in Hubbardston. In the last year, we've had 3 people wanna meet with the office about doing 40Bs.
Have any of them gone beyond the first meeting?
2, no, 1, we'll see.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's kind of a big policy change from before, because there was kind of belief that that Hubbardston didn't have to worry about the 10% number and didn't have to worry about complying with the housing rules because nobody would ever wanna do a 40B. And ultimately, the reason, for anyone who might not already know this, there's an area of law called 40B, and what it means is if you have below a certain affordable housing stock, someone can go out and get a comprehensive permit, and the comprehensive permit allows somebody to essentially just get their project approved by the state and waive all local zoning. So like all setback, all of that stuff's just out the window. We're relatively far off of our number, but there's all kinds of games, not so much games. There's tools and techniques that can be used for complying with the number. And there's different ways that units can be built, like more units get apportioned to affordable housing if a percentage are rental and stuff like that, so there's a lot of math to it. But yeah, that's probably the other biggest fact thing that's changed that isn't just been dominating the news for the last 5 years, is that folks have been interested in that lately, so it's probably only a matter of time until we see one. But
Worse
other-
things can happen.
I
Plenty
know,
of towns have had
yeah.
40B projects come in and
Yeah.
survived.
Yeah.
Ideally, like there are ways that 40Bs work out pretty well, dependent upon what's being done.
And depending upon the town government and whether or not it's able to hold the developers to account for the the amount of affordability units that they're gonna put in place. Are they gonna actually keep to that, or are they gonna write a check and get rid of it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But I mean, I know a few folks that have pushed them through in different towns, and
Yeah.
they've been decent people, wanting to do decent things, and the buildings have been nice.
It's just cookie cutterville.
Mm.
Well, there's
One of them's gorgeous,
Is it?
yeah.
there's a whole genre of friendly 40B projects which aren't like when people think 40B, they automatically think of like Avalon
Yeah.
and just the largest, cheapest frame thing that you can possibly put together, and that is a type of 40B that sometimes happens, but there's also friendly 40B projects. And friendly 40B projects are one where somebody really works with the town a lot more. And in those situations, you can see stuff more like open space residential developments, things like that, that would be more appropriate to kind of the character and nature of Hubbardston.
Yeah, something that would fit in better.
Yep. So that's about the extent of what the request is. If there's general questions about the plan, feel free to email me as individuals. I'm trying to think of how I can respond to everybody as individuals and not create an issue with open meeting law. And then I guess to get everybody caught up on the answers, well, you guys don't have like a meeting folder, I could just email you and you can just distribute them before the meeting, because that way we won't end up with email threads that turn into deliberations.
Yeah, okay.
I just need the links dumped in so I can do this fun reading.
And
My
then
spare
just at a
time.
date, we'll come in and we'll give comments.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, that's
get nothing until I read it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen it for
I've seen it a bunch of times, but when you're specifically asking me about specific things, and, okay, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
need to reread that to answer you correctly.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure which ones applied to us. Cause
Yep.
like I said, we're not in the implementation. I mean, like, the housing was obvious, but I wasn't sure what else.
Yep. Oh, I guess the other kind of useful piece of information for framing some of this is, based upon some of the conversations at a state level, we are gonna see a T-stop in Gardner within the next 5 years. So we will become an MBTA zone community, well, MBTA adjacent zone
Mhm.
community.
Another one of those lovely MBTA zone towns
So.
jumped on the lawsuit bandwagon.
Some
I-
of the towns
I
are
know. Well, the weird
saying
thing
no.
is, like other, cause obviously we've been following this for my work too, to see
Mhm.
what's gonna happen in Gardner. There's been a lot of, oh yeah, we're gonna do it if we can get $2 million or $1 billion to
Yeah.
do it. And where's the ridership and where's the survey and where's the planning? So there's been,
Yeah, it's gonna.
if 5 years I think is a
require-
very
Short.
optimistic
Yes.
viewpoint of having a plan ready to roll in 5 years.
And
But
then
there's-
actually implementing.
Right.
They
is
seem to
another-
be pushing things though that are not logical right now.
Well,
There's
I
a lot of
mean,
money behind them.
The T thing has been talked about for
Ever.
40 years.
Yeah.
Ever.
You know, as soon as they took one out of Gardner, they
Yeah.
were saying, why aren't we getting him back?
I know, but
So I mean, it's been a conversation for a very long time.
yes.
But I don't think you'll see any real plan within the next 5 years, like real cemented, this is gonna be the step. Eventually you will, but I don't think it'll be all drawn up in 5 years.
Things are a lot different than they were when they talked about it before.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying, and they're really pushing.
The-
They're pushing.
The biggest shift, and one of the things we think about from a policy standpoint, is one of the things that's driving the explosive growth in pricing that's not letting up, is the fact that somebody can get a pretty good job in Boston and only have to go to it 2 days a week.
It's
And
that
that-
work from home
Yeah.
changed
Yeah.
everything.
And that hybrid is gonna hang around, pure work from home, not so much, but hybrid's gonna hang around for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
The problem with the T thing for Gardner though, is if you're a worker in Boston and you've gotta go from Gardner to Boston, you're like a 2 to 3 hour ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're only going in
Yeah.
twice a week, you're not going to Gardner T station to go to work, you're driving your car, cause you're not gonna take the 3 hour ride.
Right.
Well,
I
the
mean,
whole-
Worcester lost their high speed, and they're getting it back maybe in May for once a day, it doesn't get into Boston until 9:30,
Yeah.
from the city of Worcester.
But the siting of the T station may be pushed in order to push the MBTA Communities Act further into the state.
Well,
There's a
the act-
political aspect to it,
well,
rather
regardless,
than a practical one.
The-
Right now.
The math for us isn't bad, so I ran a preliminary calculation on what that means. It means, not zoning for, not necessarily construction, but zoning for 90 units, that's it. We're not one of those towns where it means like zoning for 5,000 units, we're 90 units,
yeah, but is it
so-
90 units on an like not
That's
on an
still a
acre,
lot.
but you know what I mean, like high density
That's a lot
units?
of units.
Cause I don't
Well-
know how you support that with well and septic, I really don't.
Yeah.
The
Depending on the density, I don't see how you do it. I mean, on our own street, on High Street,
Yeah.
so, and they renovated the house and they put in a new well and they did something else and the guy next door lost water.
Mm.
You know, and so then he
Yeah.
had to redo something because it got thrown
Yeah.
off from that, so
Yeah.
these are all 2 acre lots and they're having a hard time keeping, depending on where they put stuff, keeping things, you know, from damaging other neighbor
Yeah.
things, I don't know how.
Well, this would be
Yeah.
all slammed in all at the same time, so.
Right, but I don't know
Yeah.
how rapid, like that much density, how, like what you need to support the well and septic. I mean, look at the size of the thing for Breezy, whatever, it doesn't even have a restaurant in it, but they have a huge system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's all kinds of factors that depend upon that soil condition and such.
Yeah.
There's parts of town that are very suitable for doing a private sewer, private water system.
Wow.
There's sections of town where it just doesn't work, and there are examples of mixed use and relatively large housing developments running on their own independent system,
Oh.
where there's 100, 200 units, and they have a sewer system, it's just entirely on property.
Oh
And
my
we do have
gosh.
lots large enough where that works. They just have to get special, state approval anytime,
And they have to find someone who's
more than 25 people.
going to
do
build a
that.
water
Yeah.
treatment system for 100
Yeah.
units and
Yeah.
maintain it, cause the town of Hubbardston definitely can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and the other thing too is that's got some watershed, or at least the Samples.
A lot of aquifers.
Has, yeah, some
A lot of
watershed
aquifers.
going down
But
into
we were,
like
cause my kids,
Gardner.
my son's
Yeah.
looking to try to buy and build, and there's like property on our street that looks completely empty.
Yeah.
From the High Street Main all the way back,
Mhm.
it's DCR.
Yeah, it's the watershed,
I'm like,
Yep.
holy crap, I mean, it's like a huge amount.
Yep.
7,000 acres.
Yeah,
Yeah, DCR, wherever watershed.
but I always
is
wondered
along.
why between these two houses, there's a stone wall and this beautiful like
Yeah.
field, I'm like, who owns that? I figured one of those two houses did, but no.
You'd be surprised
Yeah.
how much
And it's, I mean, it's like basically a front, like normal property frontage, it's not like huge frontage, it's not overly small.
Nope.
But it goes way back.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so we have our homework. So should we set a meeting for a deadline so we know when to get our reading done by?
When do
I
you
mean,
guys wanna
should-
vote on your sections?
We would like to start pulling some of the sections through as soon as possible, but if you guys needed a month or so, that's fine. Because we have a bunch of public hearings coming up for bylaws and, special permits. I'm pretty sure that, there's only so much bandwidth. The goal was originally to try to get some parts of this approved before a town meeting. That's just not gonna work because we have to answer the special permits and such. If it stayed quiet, it would have been, but it hasn't stayed quiet. We're now slammed.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So September maybe? Is that too far out?
It's- Yeah, what's too far for you?
That's too far out. Like a
Okay.
month or two
Alright.
would be good.
So we're.
May, I'm out pretty much all the time, so that's not gonna happen.
End of June maybe? I don't know, people are on vacation.
Not till July, so. Is anybody up for reelection that's gonna have to, no? Okay.
No.
We could do before the end of the year, so that way we don't have to wait to everyone get reappointed.
Reform.
Yeah. Like the end of June after town meeting and town election,
I don't know when those dates are.
the end of June.
Shame on me.
Well, the beginning of June is the first Tuesday and the second Tuesday. And then, so if we go to the further end of,
Like the 24th is a Monday.
is that we have our select board meetings on the first and third.
Yeah, that would be the
Usually.
3rd and 17th.
Okay, so yeah, 24th should be, in theory. And then that way, that gives everybody plenty of time between everything else to do some light reading.
24th June?
Yeah,
6:30, I'm assuming still?
Yes, if that's the best for everybody.
works for me.
Okay. Is there any new business other than this?
I don't think so. Did anyone else have new business, new thoughts? Oh, CPC is bringing, hopefully, assuming everything passes at town meeting, we're hoping to have a housing expert join the CPC. So that'll be lovely, and she will be able to give advice to, how to come up with ideas for affordable housing. Yeah, no,
That's nice.
it is.
Is this on a volunteer basis or?
The way CPC is constructed, you're supposed to have a housing authority member. We don't have a housing authority in Hubbardston. So we check with the state and we can ask the select board to appoint a person that we feel has expertise in that area. Like I'm on this board as rep for CPC. So like if you guys had a
Right.
project that could help spearhead how to get it through CPC or get it, in front of CPC. She actually knows about housing and affordable housing, so.
Great.
So hopefully, if that, we had to change our bylaw to allow for an appointed person with expertise, cause we don't have a housing authority, and if that passes at town meeting, then the select board can name someone to it, which would be very good,
Yes, that is great.
yeah. That person won't automatically join this committee, but
Right.
she'll advise,
It's
which
good
is
to
what we
have
need.
knowledge.
Yep,
Knowledge is better than not. All right, then,
definitely.
I suppose we can adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank Thank you.
Good.